Hi there, Bec, and welcome to One Woman's Journey. Thanks for joining us today. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great to see you.
And I think you're going to sort of introduce yourself a little bit and then tell us a little bit about your story, your journey.
Sure, yes. So I'll introduce myself first. So as Rachel said, I'm Bec Sheffield, and I work with my auntie, and we run a business called Dare to Be You. I live in North Devon, and we share the same understanding that Rachel is pointing to in what she shares as well. And I work in North Devon with my auntie. Just sharing this understanding. We used to do retreats. At the moment we can't. So that's definitely one of the things that we do a lot of, as well as some online programs and those kinds of things. So that's who I am. Do you want me to dive straight into my story?
If you don't mind, yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, so my story goes a little bit like this. I was born into a family that belonged to a church community, a very kind of tight-knit church community. And so I grew up going to church regularly, Sunday school. I read the Bible. I was told about God and what that meant and how I should live my life and what rules I should follow and the things that I should and shouldn't do. And for a massive part of my life, that was amazing. It really, like as a community, it was truly beautiful. I had a really nice childhood growing up and doing lots of fun, and there was always something going on at church. I had an amazing group of friends and had a really lovely experience of that. At some point in my life, and I don't think I even can quite identify when, and probably doesn't matter, but at some point in my life there was something that was kind of coming through me that I was afraid to share, afraid to be. I wasn't brave enough to be myself. And everything I'd been kind of taught as I was growing up was, these are the rules, this is the box you have to fit in, this is the rules you have to follow, this is what God expects of you, and woe betide you if you break any of that. And at some point along that journey, I got into a lot of trouble. I got myself into a right royal mess, trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted and why some of what was going on at the church didn't make sense to me. And I worked for a lady when I was kind of in my mid-20s. I worked for a lady who was also part of the church. And a lot of the work we did was actually trying to help people in the church. It was very kind of therapy-driven work in that church community. And during that time, as I was working for her, very slowly but surely, the relationship became very unhealthy. There was a lot of manipulation, a lot of fear-driven behaviour from me, there was a lot of manipulation. Her kind of behaviour towards me and my behaviour towards her was very unhealthy. There was I spent a lot of time in anxiety. Every day on the bus on the way into work, there was kind of just this build-up of anxiety in me. What's she going to say to me today? What am I going to get wrong today? And then I would arrive at work and she'd be in the best mood in the world. And anyone that's been in that kind of unhealthy relationship, it feels like you're walking on eggshells. It feels like you don't know what's coming next. And I'd got myself into a very kind of people-pleasing headspace, very much, what can I do to make her feel okay? What can I do to make sure she doesn't snap at me today? What can I do to ensure that she likes me and that other people like me? And I found that I was struggling to fit in, that my church community didn't make so much sense to me anymore. And now I was working for somebody in the church, and that wasn't too healthy either. And unfortunately, what happened for me was that I found myself in a relationship with a married man who was also a part of the church community. You can probably see where this is going. There's a whole lot of tangled stuff happening for me now. So my whole life is wrapped up in this community, my work, my friendships, my social life. And now I'm having a relationship with somebody who's already married. So as you can probably imagine, after a few months of that, it all kind of exploded, and everybody in the church kind of tried to get involved in that. And I just felt very alone, very distressed. I could see that what I was doing wasn't right, but I didn't even know why I was doing it. I just felt very scared, and something about that relationship made me feel a bit better. And I guess it's like an addiction. You know, I've seen my sister, who I know you've interviewed, she had a difficulty with alcohol, and that was similar for her. Picking up a drink had a bit of a kind of feeling of, oh, I feel better when I'm drinking. And that's the same for me in that relationship. It felt, for a minute, it felt better. Oh, somebody likes me. Somebody thinks I'm good enough. And everything else in my life didn't feel right, didn't fit. So a lot of stuff kind of all, you know, I was juggling a lot of unhealthy and uncomfortable things in one go. They all kind of crashed to the ground. You know, my job, I couldn't work for that lady anymore. I'd got to the end of my tether. I broke down. I had to leave when she was out of the country. I just kind of stopped going and stopped having contact with her. The relationship with a married man ended, and I couldn't contact him anymore. And that everybody in the church kind of wanted to have their say, wanted to tell me what I'd done wrong, as if I didn't know that already, as if I wasn't already, you know, in that place of, I've made a mess here, and I had no idea how to.
And looking back, but if you look back now, this hindsight, which is great, what was some of your thinking, do you think, about, I have to be able to please people, I have to make other people happy, my whole community is work, social, everything is in one place here. What was some of the thinking or beliefs about yourself, do you think, that took you into that sort of people-pleasing behaviour, and then, you know, what was to follow from that?
Yeah, it was very much, and this was something that kind of later, as my journey moved more into the principles understanding, what I really saw was that I believed that I needed love from outside of me to feel complete, feel good enough. And I can see that is why I ended up working for somebody who on first appearance was very confident, appeared to like me, and very early on in that working relationship, she was very complimentary, very, you know, looked after me very well. And then when I kind of got into the more the affair relationship, the same sort of thing. He made, you know, he said lots of nice things to me, and I thought, oh, I feel good now. Somebody loves me. Somebody thinks I'm attractive. Somebody would give up their whole life for me. And it's all very, you know, very much driven by the belief that I wasn't complete, that I wasn't already good enough, that I needed someone or something outside of me to love me, to say that I'm okay, to say all of those nice things that we want to believe about ourselves.
So sort of feeling better from other people or the circumstances, or just getting that fix of what sounds like a sort of gap, really, a sort of hole looking to be filled, and but actually it became very toxic and damaging, really.
Very much. And it is like, when I likened it earlier to addiction, it is very much for me. It's like, when we think that there's a hole that we need to fill, we'll do anything to fill it. And it happens that my anything was a relationship, a sexual relationship with somebody. In Lucy's case, hers was alcohol. And I'm sure, you know, people listening to this, or examples from their own lives, or people in it, we turn to something outside to try and fill that hole. A very simple but impactful misunderstanding.
Because it's very, very uncomfortable, isn't it, that being, you know, feeling that gap, feeling that hole, feeling not good enough, wanting to fix it, wanting to feel better. I mean, it's very, very uncomfortable, and we sort of grow up thinking that these things can be only, you know, made better from outside ourselves. But actually, as you say, that's part of the misunderstanding. That's part of the thinking that we've sort of grown up with. And
very much that.
So in terms of, you sort of left us there at the, okay, it's all come crashing down point. Perhaps you'd like to pick up a bit there.
I don't want to leave you guessing.
No, don't leave us hanging.
So I mentioned the beginning of my auntie, and I've mentioned my sister. they're actually very key players in what happened next.
Yeah.
So my auntie, a lot of stuff had happened to her, and I won't tell her story because that's for another day. I think an amazing conversation with her.
Yeah.
But obviously, as my auntie, I watched her go through stuff, and I watched her change. Like, I watched her life from what can only be described as hell sort of turn itself around. Then my sister, as I've mentioned, there was some problems for her, and the same thing for her. I watched her step out of this kind of alcohol driven crazy life that she had into someone that matured and grew up and found herself. So when all of this came crashing down around me, I rang my sister, and in tears I said, I need to speak to Auntie Deb. And she said, yes you do. And I didn't know this till much later on, but they spent months and months and months having conversations about me and how they could help me. So, you know, and people aren't blind to that stuff when stuff's going on like that. You know, I thought nobody knew. I thought I was playing, you know, putting on a really good face. They knew there was stuff going on. So I essentially at the time I lived in the Midlands, in Coventry, and I came to Devon where my auntie lived and stayed with her for a week, and she just started sharing with me what she had seen that had turned her life around. And that it had a massive impact on me very quickly. And then it just became a kind of conversation that I wanted to stay a part of. It was something that I really saw exactly that thing we were just talking about the kind of feeling like there was a hole to fill. I really saw that was the misunderstanding, and that love that I looked for outside of myself was already who I was. I already was that love. And I just started to see things like that. I started to see how thought creates our experience, and that I didn't need to go outside of myself to feel that wholeness and that completeness. And it meant that I turned up in life in a completely different way. I got a job at the civil service, which was for a good few years was a really good job. Made some new friends. I left the church community, and just had an entirely different experience of life. Just all the different areas of my life just started to get cleaner and healthier. And I found this zest for life that I think I last remembered having at about 8 years old, you know, and it was like, oh, life's amazing. I didn't know. And something in me just woke up again.
Woke up. I love that. And that's, you know, that's why I have the sort of waking women, you know. It's about waking up. It's about coming to see, you know, coming to see clearly, you know, without all those misunderstandings of who we are and not being good enough, and, you know, carrying around this hole. And so I'm wondering, you know, can you remember, you know, what Deb was saying to you at the time of, you know, sharing with you, and what do the principles mean to you, really? And because for people watching, I'm sure people can get frustrated sometimes when it's like, what is this understanding that they're talking about? You know,
saying, tell us.
It all sounds very sort of, you know, mysterious.
It sort of is, only because it's way beyond what we can put into words. But it's not, you know. At the same time, what I do now is share this, so I do attempt to put it into words fairly often. So I guess to kind of start with the first part of that question, what did Deb share with me? I can remember her telling me again and again and again, she just said the same thing like a lot to me, which was, we live in the feeling of our thinking. And it took me quite a long time to know what that meant. So I'll say it in another way in case time. We feel what we think. That's the simplest way I can think at the moment to put it. And to me, that looks like we have thoughts that kind of appear to land in our head out of almost nowhere. And then we get the accompanying feeling if we kind of take that thought on, if you like. Sometimes I think, I don't know about you, but I get thoughts that just kind of land and then they're gone. And I'm like, okay, that didn't stick around. You know, and sometimes they seem to just take root, don't they? And they're like, oh, okay, we're just going to play around here and give you a full-on experience. And we feel that. we always get the feeling that matches what we're thinking. And for me, like Deb, for quite a few months, we had that conversation, and she would sort of say that, and I was like, but what about here? Well, what about here? And we just explored lots and lots of places. You know, it's like, well, what about when my boss treated me like this? And what about when the man I was seeing treated me like this? And what about when the church community did this to me? And it was we just explored some real life situations, and I really got to see that it's not to say those things weren't happening, but I can only experience that through the filters of my thinking about it. And that it changed something for me, because I really started to see the gift in those things. Quite a long time it was, they did this to me, they treated me badly, I got, you know, cast out, if you like. And I started to see that I could tell that story, I could tell it that way.
Yeah.
Actually, all of those things that happened were an incredible gift to me. I've been hiding myself, I've been holding back who I was. And those things, they kind of all conspired together to actually allow me to come back to life. I feel like if those things hadn't have happened, I'm sure some other stuff would have happened, because I feel like life continues to come through us. But they were the gifts that I got to bring me back to life. So that was the first thing really that Deb and I kind of explored together. And somewhere in the mix of seeing that, I noticed that I liked myself a lot more. I didn't used to like, for a long, long time, I didn't like myself. I could pretend that I did. I could pretend that I was confident. When I was home alone with my own thoughts, I didn't like who I was. And what I noticed as I got to see that I had thoughts and they created my feelings, I didn't have to take those thoughts so seriously. And something about seeing that meant, I don't know, it gave me healthier thoughts. It gave me thoughts I was more interested in. And it meant I could just allow the ones that weren't so great to just pass on by. And I just started to like myself more. And that hole that it felt like I had filled itself up. Kind of, it rejuvenated, and suddenly I noticed that I was complete. I noticed that I was perfect as I was. And I liked myself more, and I enjoyed my own company more. I enjoyed other people's company more. A whole host of stuff changed for me as I was having those conversations, as I was looking to see how we really work as human beings.
Yeah, I love that you say, through the filter of your own perception. I love that, because that really sums it up. Because yes, outside events go on, and we've all got a different reaction to the same event. So we often think it's about the event that's causing our feelings, but actually we feel whatever we feel about the same event through our own filter of perception. So yeah, that's lovely. I love that. And that sort of helps us out quite a lot, doesn't it, getting that?
Yeah, it really does. It kind of, I don't know, it sort of opens up all kinds of possibilities. Because I think before I understood what these principles were, and I'll come back to answering because I realise you've asked me that and I haven't answered yet, but I will. Before I understood that, I think I didn't even notice that thoughts landed in my head as a thought. There was just truth running through my head. That's how I would have described it. It's just, this is true, this is what it is. And I never stopped to look and see if there was any wiggle room around that. The more that I explored, that thought isn't truth, the fact that I even know that I have thinking means that I'm not that thinking, that kind of opens up to gives us that little gap, that little bit of separation. There's thought, and then there's me looking at that thought. And if I'm aware of that thought and I can see it, that isn't who I am. That isn't solid truth. That's just an option. It's like a plethora of options that come to us. You can think this, you can have a experience today if you like, Bec. And sometimes I say, thanks, that looks like a great one. No, thanks, that doesn't look so happy and
don't
healthy.
fancy that one, thanks. Yeah.
A bit like, the all you can eat buffet.
Yes, exactly.
There's
Yeah.
often bits there that I'm like, no, I'm not
Yeah.
putting that on my plate.
Yeah.
That's how it
Yeah.
looks now.
Yeah, although it's deeper, isn't it, than just picking the positive thoughts and trying to leave the negative thoughts on the buffet. It's more a choice of all the thoughts that are passing through, and for all of us, some are more sticky than others, and
Yeah,
some
for
seem
sure.
more true to us than others, don't they? In our own perception, you know. But yeah,
Very,
so so all this time on, then, I mean, I'm going to ask you about the impact on you, but I know very well that you and with your auntie, you've set up Dare to Be You, and you've been doing that a few years now, and really just thriving.
yes.
Yeah, thriving. And
Yeah.
yeah, would you like to say a bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I didn't answer what the principles are.
Oh, right,
Can you
okay. So the people
I mean,
getting really frustrated now, still listening. Yeah.
yeah. And part of that is that was me. I heard the very first time I heard my auntie talk about the principles, all I wanted to know, because she referred to them as the 3 principles, all I wanted to know was,
What
well,
are
what
they?
are
Yeah.
they? And I know for me that was a real, until I'd heard what they were, I couldn't move on with the conversation. So I would like to just touch on that, and
Sure.
then
Yeah.
where I'm at now. So to kind of just answer the 3 principles, it is kind of what's there was Sydney Banks who talked about how life works, and the way that he explained that was these 3 spiritual principles, and they are mind, thought, and consciousness. But I don't actually want to get kind of hung up on what nitty gritty of those. For me, it's more about seeing that life works one way, and that's from the inside out. And to kind of, I've already touched on that a little bit, in that we will always feel what we think, and we as human beings, we are thinking creatures. We will get thoughts and we will feel them, and sometimes we won't even notice that they're thoughts. It just looks like life is coming right at us. And other times it's amazing, we get to really see what's playing out for us. And kind of expand on those principles a little bit, for me, that kind of mind, as it's termed in that way, is that universal intelligence. That means that I get to think. That means that I'm here right now talking to you. That means that my nails grow and my hair grows, and the sun passes through the sky, and some days there's clouds and some days there's not. It's kind of some sort of power, energy, essence behind life that means that happens. And then that arises within consciousness. But for me, I prefer the word awareness or space. Like, all of that happens, that kind of intelligence, that me being a human, me having thoughts and being able to portray them to you, happens within a space and awareness that's more than I can really put into words, more than we can really explain in words. But we know it, don't we? We can feel it, something in us. One of the ways that for me I really feel that is, I'm fortunate enough to live in rural North Devon, and on a clear night, when it starts to get dark, I can step outside and the sky just lights up with stars.
Wow. Yeah.
And for me, the way that works, I don't know if anyone's been a stargazer, but when you first step outside of your house and the lights have been on, and you go out, first of all, you can't see anything because it's pitch black. Then somehow our eyes start to just adjust to the darkness. And then I look up and I'm like, oh, there's only a couple of stars tonight. And the longer I'm looking, the more stars appear. For me, that's consciousness, that's awareness. The more that we step out and look, the more that arises in this for us. So
beautiful metaphor as well, about you can relate that to learning and coming across the principles, can't you? In the beginning it all seems a bit dark and confusing. Doesn't make much sense.
No.
But then you see a little bit of light and you think, well, okay, that there's a bit of light there, and then a bit more, and then a bit more. So great, beautiful metaphor as well for that.
For me, that's what these principles are. It's that description of how life works through us and how we have our experience.
How we experience life, isn't it? Yeah, and this understanding makes that so much easier. Well, that's been my experience, certainly, and I'm sure it's been yours, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which actually leads nicely into your
Yes. Yeah.
where am I now? What's happening now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it basically over about 2 or 3 years, I had lots of conversations with Deb. I went to a lot of retreats with her. I went to there's a big conference that happens in London around this understanding. So I got very involved and listened to a lot of people sharing and talking about this. And my life just took a really different turn. I saw something very different. I'm in a relationship now with someone I've actually known for a very, very long time. And our relationship is very healthy, very happy. We're kind to each other 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been my experience in relationships before. And like I said, I worked for the civil service, so I had for about 4 years. I had a really nice career there, progressed very well, really enjoyed it, got on so well with everybody I worked with. And but at some point in the middle of all of that, I loved what I did. I loved the job that I had and the people I worked with. But something in me, that voice that I felt like had been trying to come through when I was at church and struggling, was kind of coming back again. It was like, okay, there's more for you to be doing here in life. And I don't mean more as in add lots to my to-do list.
Yes. Yeah.
More as in a passion, a calling, a something to follow. It had changed my life so dramatically, so amazingly. I needed to share this. I needed to live my life surrounded by this conversation and having this conversation with anyone that would listen and quite a few people that wouldn't. And so I made the decision alongside my sister to move to Devon and work with my auntie Deb, and the three of us now in various ways work together and share this. And it is just every day we turn up and live life, like really live life in a way that it used to be. I really used to live for the weekends. It was like Saturday sort of Sunday were the days I lived, and Monday to Friday was hell on earth.
Yeah.
And now it's like Monday to Sunday is just heaven. I love it and live it. And maybe once a month I might have a day where I'm like, oh yeah, no, just a bit of a drain today.
Yeah. Life still happens.
Like I'm not superhuman. I haven't kind of evolved so far that I don't feel things and experience things. I have a very rich life, a very kind of full life, and I have those moments that make me think, oh, why do we have to do life?
Yes. Yeah.
I bounce back and I love life, and it's all of it. And I didn't used to know that was okay. It used to look like if I had those days, that meant something about me. That meant I had to go out and fix things in the world. And now it just looks like, well, that's part of the roller coaster. It's part of what happens here. And somehow knowing that means that when I have those nice days, those amazing days, those full life days, I appreciate them all the more.
Because I think sometimes with spirituality, it's like, and I've been guilty of this, thinking that I have to reach a certain level or a certain, guru status or something, so I can float around and, meditate and love everybody, and, and it's all like woo-woo and lovely. But actually, this understanding is much more grounded, isn't it? It's a spiritual understanding, but it's very grounded in human reality, and it's all of it. It's what we're made of and that universal energy, but also it's the human form. Day to day, life happens. We've still got to, we still have to do stuff. It's okay to feel fed up, tired, angry. It's all very, very normal. And there isn't this search anymore about how do I float around as a guru, when I've made it, and that's what I love about it, really. It's very, very grounded in reality.
Ordinary.
Yes, ordinary. Yeah.
Very ordinary.
Very
ordinary. Know that to me, it's being human is a gift. Like knowing that there's more to me than that means that I can enjoy the gift of being human. And I cry more these days at almost the silliest of things. And I see that as an amazing thing, because I never used to,
Mm.
because I was so afraid. I held that back. And now it's like I said to you just before we started recording, just 2 days ago, my younger sister and her wife had their second baby. So I'm an auntie again, and I saw the first picture of her and I cried. And it's like, I love that I do that, because that I get to feel all of it, everything that life can offer me. I get to experience it. And to sort of go back a little bit to the buffet, it's almost like if I paid for my buffet, even if it doesn't look so nice, I might actually try it, because I get
yeah, exactly.
so
It's all on offer.
And it's like, knowing that, even if I look at the food on that buffet, it's never going to give me food poisoning. That's kind of the thing for me about life. It's like, if I have what I might term a bad experience, it's never going to actually damage the essence of who I am. We're perfectly safe. We're in a big, soft play area. And so it's like, I welcome all of it, I get to have all of those experiences. And it's something about that that's precious to me.
I'm just aware of the time, Bec, I'm just so enjoying this conversation. It's just like, wow, amazing. So we could go on, couldn't we? Me too.
That's my biggest challenge, to stop talking.
But no, I've really, really, really enjoyed it. Thank you. And so much lovely stuff in there. So people who'd like to hear a little bit more from you and what you're up to, where can they find you, Bec?
So the two easiest places are the website, which is daretobeyou.co.uk, and that's the number 2, the letter B and the letter U, and our Facebook group, which is Dare to Be You, with a purple heart at the end. They're the two easiest places to connect with us. So be in touch, because I love, as you can tell, talking about this.
Exactly, yeah, and that's the other thing I think. Sydney Banks always used to say, look for the feeling. Yes. And that's what I'm sitting with now, Bec. Thank you. I'm sitting with that lovely, lovely feeling. Really, really lovely. Thank you. Thanks so much.